One of the biggest issues in our society today is a lack of courage. Amongst men is cowardice. Cowardice is the reason why society stays the way it is, because it takes courage to say, fuck this, we need to change. It takes courage to stand up and change the system. It takes courage to improve the world. But the reason why things don't really change and they stay the same is because men in our society lack warrior energy. They worry, what do people think of me? Do I fit in? How does this t-shirt look on me? How do my khakis look on me? Oh my gosh, what would my neighbors think of me? Everything's about fitting in. And when you fit in, you create a society of conformists. Conformity is the big issue in our society today, and it's getting bigger and bigger with social media and everybody looking at each other and trying our best to fit in because we care way too much what people think about us. But conformity truly leads to mental illness amongst men, because when you have a society of men who are conforming, essentially what's happening is they're not living courageously, because it takes courage to become an individual, to become self-actualized. So we have a group of men who are de-individualized. They're not who they actually want to be. And when you're not who you want to be, what happens? You walk this world in quiet desperation. You put on your khakis, you put on your polo, you put on your glasses, and you go to work, but in the back of your mind, you know you're not who you want to be. You know you're not where you want to be, but you lack the courage to make a change, politically, socially, individually. And I believe that that is not on accident. Testosterone levels are decreasing. Men are more emotional. Men struggle to speak up and speak out. People don't want to use their voice. And when you muzzle your own self, you basically take away one of the essential freedoms, and that's the ability to say, fuck this. When you have a society of men who are afraid to say, fuck this, the people who, quote unquote, run society and make the major decisions, they can get away with whatever they want to get away with, because you know what? No one's going to say anything. They don't have the courage to say anything. They don't have the fire in their bellies to say anything. Essentially, what has happened is mankind, men, have had their balls removed from them. They become tamed house dogs. When you have a big group of tamed house dogs, they create a culture of conformity. Everybody must be tamed because we're all tamed. And then you're afraid to leave the group. And what happens is, when you're someone who's not tamed, when you don't have your balls removed, everybody a part of the group looks at that person and says, what's wrong with him? Why is he not acting like us? Get back in line. Cut your balls back off and get back in here with us. And this culture essentially is what breeds averageness, mediocrity, and cowardice. A society of people who just want to get along, don't want to shake the cage, want to just go to work, come back home so that they can scroll on social media and watch their television, because they don't want things to be uncomfortable. They want to live in comfort land. If you don't believe that you can change things and you don't believe in these things, you're not going to have the strength to do the little things. It's one thing to go against a political system. It's another thing to say, you know what, I'm going to be exactly who the fuck I want to be no matter what, and be strong and hold your ground. If you can't even do that, how can you fight the world? How can you go against the problems of the world if you're afraid of telling your boss no? Or even having the mindset that you have a boss. You know what I mean? You're a man. Nobody's your boss. That's your employer. You know what I'm saying? You don't work for someone, you work with them. It's these little words that we use that tame us and take away our balls as men. When you think that another man could be your manager, these things that people don't even think about, but they just live it because it's a part of the culture and it's part of everyday society, and no one's critically thinking about it and analyzing it. And it's like, yo, you gotta look at these things. This is how I look at the world 24/7. I'm constantly thinking about things because I've read history books and I've seen how the past people in our society have been groomed and controlled. They say history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. The oppression now, it's secret oppression. It's more unseen oppression. And that's the most effective form of oppression, because you can continue to oppress people if they don't know they're being oppressed. And the best way to oppress people is by not making the water too hot for them. If the water's too hot, we'll run the streets and we'll have picket signs and we'll say, fuck this. But if it's just hot enough, people will be comfortable with their oppression. And that's what we have. We have comfortable levels of oppression. Now, is it better than some other countries? For sure. But that doesn't mean we should be comfortable with the status quo. We should still say something. We should still speak up. And we need a society of people who are willing to speak up. We need more courage as men, because this is just the beginning of a society. Once AI technology comes and we have robots walking the streets and everyone has VR goggles and everyone's super linked into the matrix or the internet, the ability to oppress will get stronger and stronger and stronger, because the next generation of kids, they're not going to have the courage. If our courage level is at this, what do you think our children are going to be at? They're going to be at even a lower state. And now the next generation will be even more enslaved. The next generation will be even more comfortable with their oppression. And this is why I believe that we had the masks in 2020, because I believe what that was just a grooming process to groom the children to be used to following orders and doing what the state tells them to do. That's what it was. And so if we don't wake up to these perspectives of society and have conversation and open dialogue about it, people are just like, not a big deal, shut up, just go to work. and just scroll past, you know what? Things will be worse before you know it. When the next psyop comes, when the next manufactured crisis happens, and then they tell everybody, get in your house, put your mask back on, take the shot. People will just do whatever they're told. And it all stems from a lack of courage. It's about being a courageous individual. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Maybe right now things are comfortable, things are easy, but you must still maintain a warrior mentality. The mentality that you're always ready to fight and defend and stand up for yourself and for others and for your freedoms, and to live like that every day, even if you're going to your job, even if you're doing the most simple things. Always keep your sword on your hip, metaphorically. Always keep it on your hip. Don't act like because everything's okay, you can leave your sword at home. The sword is a metaphor for your warrior spirit, your willingness to stand up to the status quo or to injustice when you see it. And a lot of times we see injustice every day in small doses. It happens subtly. Art of war. The art of war is about subtle war tactics, subtle strategies. We see oppression happen every day in little ways. You may see it at your job. You may see it at the grocery store, how someone speaks to somebody, how people get away with how they try to control you at your job. Maybe you ask for these hours, they give you these hours. You're like, hey, I needed these hours, but you guys gave me those hours. They're like, no, you gotta work those hours because we told you to. It's like, do you stand up and say, no, I asked for these hours, these are the hours that I want? Do you hold your ground or do you comply? Little things like that. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but this is the type of stuff that happens every day in the workplace. Are you willing to say, no, I want what I want? Or are you gonna take what they give you? It's little things that happen in a day-to-day basis where people don't recognize they're being subtly oppressed. And it's not that big a deal. I know it might sound hyperbolic, but it's like a mindset. You know what I mean? Because if you're gonna allow the little things to oppress you, you're absolutely going to allow big shit to oppress you. You're not gonna do anything about that. You're not willing to stand up to your employer. Are you gonna be willing to stand up to a police officer? Hell no. Because you're afraid to stand up to your employer. What if I lose my job? What if they cut my hours? You're afraid. You live in fear. Have the courage to stand up no matter what. Stand up for yourself. The biggest problem in our society is men tolerating shit. Tolerating bullshit. When you are a coward, you tolerate shit when you shouldn't. You should stand up and say, fuck this. What's up, guys? What's up? What's happening? Talking to people, you know how it is. You gotta be willing to say, fuck this. But if you're constantly allowing yourself to be pushed around subtly in your day-to-day life, when the state decides to push you around, you're gonna allow it. You're gonna tolerate it. Toleration is one of the biggest issues in our society. Tolerating bullshit. Tolerating things. And I believe that the whole mask agenda wasn't just for preventing the spread of coronavirus. It was to subtly condition the people to tolerate stupid rules, stupidity. You gotta put your mask on. Why do I have to put my mask on when I walk into the restaurant when I know I'm gonna sit down and take my mask off? Because that's the rules. Well, that person over there doesn't have their mask on and they're working. Well, they're working, so they don't have to wear their mask. I'm like, well, where's the logic in that? It doesn't matter. Put your fucking mask on. What do most people do? Okay, put my mask on. Okay, because I want to sit down and eat. Rather than saying, fuck this. You know what I'm saying? Fuck that. I'm not going to allow this subtle disrespect. And people say it's not a big deal. Put your mask on. Just comply. See, that's the thing. It's where it starts. Because you do a little bit, and then you go to the next restaurant, the next day or the next week, you do the same thing, do the same thing, do the same thing, and it compounds. And now you're somebody who just complies. You just follow the rules without ever thinking about it. We have to become stronger people. We have to have more courage. We can't wait for shit to hit the fan for us to wake up and say, you know what? It's time to change. It's time to be strong. By then it's too late. Now it's too late. You got to be ready at all times. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready.